Well, good morning, everyone. It's another Monday morning here in Cleveland, Ohio. Beautiful weather outside today. It's sunny and seems like summer has finally arrived. So, good morning. My name is Dr. Sherry Tenpenny. I want to welcome you to another episode of This Week with Dr. T. We get together every Monday morning around 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and we invite in guests and have amazing conversations about things that I think you'd like to hear. You can find previous episodes right here on CloudHub, or you can find them over at drtenpenny.com under the podcast area. But before we introduce our guest this morning, I want to talk to you about our sponsors for this week. This week, we were talking about Opti NAC. Now, if you've bought any of our supplements or if you've gone to any of our store, you can see that the label that it has the leaves and the green. That's my private label products that I really like from companies that I really know and trust. NAC is N-acetylcysteine. It's an amino acid that when you combine that with B12, you create glutathione. Glutathione is your number one antioxidant in your body. It's important for your liver, your heart, your lungs, your brain, everything. And so it's an important essential supplement to have in your cabinet. It works for a lot of different things. And the NAC is so important for healing your body and for promoting glutathione. You can find that at shop10penny.com. And this week it was we have a special on with the NAC that we're doing, and you can find that at the store. Excuse me. If you're part of our email list, you will know that every Friday we send out 3 products that we think are really important and new things for you to consider from our store. So Friday Favorites comes out every Friday, imagine that, and that you can see the different things that are for your consideration and that you like. The second product that we're going to promote this week, because we always do business with My Pillow. You know, I am a shopper of My Pillow. I have the pillows, I have the sheets, I have the slippers, I have the towels, and I really like their products. And the Giza sheets really are everything that Mike says on his commercials that they are. This week, he's having another promotion on the towels, which is you buy one, you get one free. Buy one set, you get one set free, which just is amazing. You can have them in your own bathroom, you can have them in your guest bathroom, you can give them away as gifts. And if you go to mypillow.com and you use our affiliate code, which is DRT as in Dr. Tenpenny, if you go to mypillow.com and you use the affiliate code DRT, you can get one set and get a second set for free. Now, if you're not in the market for towels this week, you can go into the My Pillow store. There's more than 200 different types of products that are there for your friends, family, and you know what I've been saying for a while now. It's June, so we've got graduations from high school, graduations from college. There's lots of weddings and things going on, and I believe it's next weekend is Father's Day, so it might be a good time to think about a really incredibly good set of towels for your special man in your life. And the last thing that we're going to talk about this morning in terms of our sponsor is if you go to drtenpenny.com and you under the shop button, you'll see a button that says apparel. And we're always adding new things for in terms of t-shirts and mugs and cups. And I absolutely love this design that Melissa and our design maker put together. And it says, normal isn't coming back, Jesus is. Now, we don't know the day nor the time. I mean, Jesus himself said only the Father in heaven knows when that is, but that we will know by the times. And so, our forward looking in terms of a Christian is looking forward to when Jesus is coming back. And honestly, until he comes back in person, he is in our lives every single minute of every single day. And so I was telling I was telling Michelle before at the start of the show, when we were talking about our sponsors this week, I said, I'm going to go out to my own store and I'm going to buy that mug because I really like that mug a lot. And I hope that you'll get it too, and that will be a testament of your faith. And you'll be able to share what you're thinking, and be able to share your maybe share the gospel with somebody when they see your really cool mug, and they say, "Wow, where did you get that? And what does that really mean?" So it's a testimony that you can use every day and remind yourself of your relationship with the Lord. So with that, I want to introduce today's guest. Today's guest is Nickita Starck, who comes to us from our very good friend and sister in Christ that we've had on our show multiple times over the last couple of years, Kate Shimarani. Nickita Starck is the founder of When Push Comes to Shove, the fastest growing alternative maternity structure in the world. Nickita founded When Push Comes to Shove in 2020 when independent midwives in the UK lost their ability to practice because they lost their equivalent of what we would call in the US malpractice insurance. This was the last hope for women to have autonomy over giving birth to their children, and Nickita vowed to raise the money to put the coverage back in place. Since establishing the organization, Nickita has developed a worldwide network of natural birth practitioners who facilitate non clinical birth. Doesn't that just sound lovely? The message of the movement is simple: informed consent. Women should give birth in a setting of their choice after making an informed decision. They should never be coerced one way or another. To date, Nickita has trained 65 doulas, midwives, and doctors, and her birth keeper directory spans 6 countries with over 100 practitioners. Her personal motto is peace on earth will start at birth. And when women take control of their birth and are supported by their choices, we will be able to create a better world. Nickita is also a singer and a songwriter and has released the song Breathe Again to spread awareness of informed consent in childbirth in her organization. So, with that, good morning, Nickita. Welcome to This Week with Dr. T, and welcome from the UK. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. T. It's lovely to meet you.
Thank you so much. How long have you known Kate?
A few months. I've known of her for a very long time, and a former client of mine actually put me in touch with her, and we've been talking ever since. So yeah, it's been wonderful getting to know her. She's great. What she does is incredible. She's a force.
Force, man, that is the worst. She should get a T-shirt for herself that says "I am the force" because she really is.
Or just the force, because that
The
just
force.
explains her.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, when I was reading your bio, whenever I have a guest on my podcast, I always do a little research just so I know a little bit better who they are. Feel like I can ask a little bit more intelligent questions, and so I was just very curious that you got involved in this movement because you were really disgusted that they'd lost their ability to practice because they didn't have insurance, and you said, "I'm going to go out and raise the money." Tell us that story and that part of your journey.
Oh, it's quite convoluted. So yeah, I started when push comes to shove because independent midwives. So we've got um, three main types of midwives in the UK. We've got NHS midwives who work within the National Health Service. That's hospital based or community midwives, and they have to work under a structure called the NMC, the Nursing and Midwifery Council. And then we've got private midwives, which is a company, and then we have independent midwives. And independent midwives, they're not so they don't have to worry about straying from NMC guidelines. They can work autonomously, and their insurance was taken away in 2020. So I thought, right, it's women's last chance for autonomy. So I started to try and raise money to get an indemnity product together. That didn't work out. But as I started to go through the insurance research, I found that so many women, midwives, didn't even want to practice under that anymore. They wanted to work as a birth keeper as opposed to a midwife. They wanted to practice as a natural birth attendant rather than doing it clinically. So with that, I started to train people to do what I do. I've been a natural birth practitioner for 13 years. I started off in midwifery and I thought it'd become very over pathologized. So I started going down the natural route, and it's been my calling. So I'm now training women to do what I do. But as I was trying to find the insurance, another company, a lovely group of independent midwives that I've been working with, they've actually sorted the insurance on the other side of things. So we're starting to work together now. So that's really good. But lots of midwives have now dropped what's called their PIN number, so their NMC PIN number, their registration number, and they're working away from clinical practice, and they're just working with natural birth instead. But the movement's just developed since then.
Well, you said a phrase that I've never heard before. You said a birth keeper. What is a birth keeper?
Okay, it's a fairly new expression. So because of insurance purposes in the UK and government guidelines, midwives who are now working outside their scope, they're now birth keepers. They're not midwives, because midwife is a term that is used within guidelines, and we can't say that. And they're not doing anything clinical. So they're birth keepers. So a birth keeper is usually a former midwife who is now assuming the role of a doula, I suppose, but they've got a medical background.
What would be the distinction in what they actually do? I mean, to be totally honest, I don't know much about midwifery. And I'm sure that some of the
Mm,
people that are here don't either, particularly women who have
mm,
had all of their children in a hospital setting. And
mm,
I mean, home birth was a really, really big deal here in the US maybe 15, 20 years ago. And then it's gone more towards more hospital based and, the push for C-sections and all of those. But I do believe that because of COVID and people are starting to really understand the fraud inside the entire medical system. They're now looking at more
mm,
natural things, and what could be more natural than giving birth that, women have done for 30,000 years or as long as they've been on this planet without,
mm,
the medicalization of what happens when you give birth inside of a hospital. Talk a little bit about
mm.
midwifery and the doulas. And I'm not even particularly sure what the distinction is between a doula and a midwife, and now with a birth keeper. Can you explain those little steps a little bit better for us?
Sure. So a midwife is a clinically trained practitioner. So they will, like, I suppose it's the equivalent in the US of an obstetric nurse. So they know clinical practice. They can perform things such as episiotomies, etc., etc. Um, they know obstetric emergency. I don't know, like rubbing out a contraction, for example. And they're qualified to put up drips and take blood, etc., etc. A doula is a non-clinical practitioner. They should be experts in physiological birth. They're there for emotional and practical support for their clients, and they're there as an advocate and to facilitate a physiological birth. Now, that's becoming more and more popular because, as you just quite rightly said, people are waking up to what's going on now, and they're like, "Oh, hang on, birth? Why is that being over medicalized?" And they're starting to ask more questions, and it's more popular for women to actually want control and being empowered in their birth. So they're choosing to go with doulas or birth keeper, and the distinction of birth keeper is usually a former midwife who's no longer registered with the governing body, and they're now acting as a doula. But we say birth keeper so people know that they've got midwifery training, if that makes
That's a
sense.
really cool concept, and it's a really cool a really cool title. Did you come up with that?
No, I didn't. It started to
Okay.
just do the rounds, and I heard it, and I thought, okay, we just need to change our language because if we can't have midwives, we'll have birth keepers. It's just changing your language, so a loophole, so to speak, reading between the
It's a
lines.
lovely thought, really, because that's really what women really need, right? Is they need to
Mm,
someone to assist them that they can feel confident with, that if something goes awry, which it does, what, maybe
mm.
10% of the time, or maybe even a little bit
If that.
less. What is that?
Mm. If
If
that,
that,
it's
right.
probably less than 10%. Yeah.
It's probably less than 10%. And I think women need to know that because I think that the
Mm,
medicalization of birth, because it's got a CPT code and an ICD 9 or an ICD 10 code, which was what we use here in the US to bill insurance for the whole process of birthing. And that's how the doctors get paid and the hospitals get paid and all of those things. And that's why it's always been, I don't know. I don't have children, but I did a lot of obstetrics in my training when I was going through medical school and in my internship. And boy, I could tell you some stories that would just like make your hair curl. And I never
mm,
understood this whole thing. I mean, women, first of all, how unnatural is it to lay a woman on her back and put her legs up in stirrups and then, say, like, deliver this baby? I mean, seriously, you don't even have gravity helping you. You've got this incredible thing that I'm sure some man came up with somewhere, and then you've got woman is physiologically ready to deliver the baby, and she has this overwhelming urge to push, and the nurses are standing there saying, "Don't push, don't push, don't push," because they're waiting for the doctor to walk through the door. I mean, the whole thing
oh,
is just so unnatural. And I think that that's kind of where you got hooked into that, right? It's just like seeing that whole process.
yeah. Well, I mean, the reason I do what I do now is because my first birth 14 years ago was so traumatic. I was only 21 when I had my first, and it felt like a conveyor belt system, and I felt like a number, and I felt unnecessarily interfered with and very traumatized. And afterwards, I spoke to my grandmother, very wise old Indian woman, and I said, "How is this normal?" And she said, "It's not normal, it's common. There's a difference." And I
Oh,
thought,
wow.
oh, yeah. Um, she said, look at why this is happening. And I started to doubt. I thought, what? But birth is natural. Why is it so dangerous? And after a long, like few years of research and working with some amazing independent midwives and some parteras, like who really know birth, I figured there are three main reasons why birth goes wrong. And I have to do that in inverted commas because so many women think birth is a big traumatic event. It's going to be a car crash and it's always going to go wrong and they don't trust their bodies. But there are three main reasons why. One is poverty. And this is still a problem today. So if you live in an overcrowded environment where disease can spread like wildfire, you're more likely to be malnourished. So ailments will arrive there. And then you're less likely to have education. So yes, you're more likely to get problems there. The second reason is there is a genuine medical concern. So there is an illness in either mum or the baby. And the third and the most common reason for birth going wrong is the overuse of medical intervention. The first step of intervention is leaving your front door. Now, I'm not here to tell anyone how or where to give birth. That's not my business. My business is informed consent. So yes, I prefer home birth because to me, it's safer. That doesn't mean to say everyone should give birth at home. If people understand physiology, they'll know that oxytocin facilitates your birth. And if oxytocin is interrupted by adrenaline, it's not going to be conducive to the birth you want. So you should give birth where you feel safe. And if that's at hospital, then do it. You should give birth wherever you feel safe. Because if you start releasing adrenaline during labor, your body's not going to do its thing. Like, imagine a few thousand years ago, you're walking on the tundra and you're about to go into labor, but you see a predator. Your body goes, don't go into labor. That's going to eat you. The adrenaline will stop your oxytocin and all your blood will go to your arms and legs ready to fight or fly. Your body's really clever. But what's the modern day equivalent to that? So you've got bright lights, feelings of being observed, listening to other women giving birth, people putting their hand inside you for no reason. What's that? That's going to stimulate adrenaline, right? That's scary. And then you hear these horrible phrases, fail to progress. People are told their bodies have failed them. Your body's not going to fail you, but your environment and your attendants certainly can.
Keep going. That's really good. That's really good.
So, sorry. I thought you were waiting for me to... Sorry, yeah, I was ranting, so I thought I'd better stop.
No, that was really good. Because you're right. You're in that in the bright lights. And I think that the hospitals have tried to change some of that by having like labor and birthing rooms and things that looks like your living room or your bed or your bedroom at home. It's still in the hospital and you still have noise and smells and all of those different things. And it's a whole lot more expensive. I mean, because you get this nice little room to go and have your baby in, they like triple the price. At least that's what they do here in the US.
Yeah, I think there's a common misconception that in the UK it's free as well. It's not. We may have the NHS, but it comes out of our tax. And also, I think people are more trusting of the medical system in the UK because, the NHS don't make any money. Yes, they do. There's something called the Care Commissioners Group. They pay the NHS nearly £4,000 for every emergency cesarean section. They don't realise this. People don't realise that. There is money incentive in everything. They want the beds filled and emptied. If you look at the most common time for a cesarean section, it's about 6 p.m. They want to get home for their dinner. So when they're told it's an emergency or you have to have a C-section because your baby's breached, this really grates on me because I'm a breech specialist. I don't mind attending a vaginal breech birth, but women have been freaked out that it's dangerous and they have to have a C-section. Now, the truth is, if you went to a standard practitioner for a vaginal breech birth, you're not in safe hands because if they don't understand the difference between a breech and the lithotomy with your legs in stirrups and an upright physiological breech, run a mile. So it's all well and good me saying, yes, you can have a vaginal breech birth, but you need someone who knows what they're doing. And they're few, far and in between. So not many people specialize in breech anymore because they don't see it, especially in the UK. Like midwives, they train in breech when they're doing their university training. But then when do they see it to practice? Because if a woman is diagnosed with a breech presentation baby, it goes from midwifery-led care to obstetric-led care, and they cut them open straight away. So how can midwives develop a skill if they're not allowed to see it? And then you've got the induction problem. Oh, you're over 40 weeks, you've got to be induced. Well, this is utter rubbish. That this is my problem. Women aren't told the truth. They're not told a balanced view. So a German obstetrician in the early 1800s coined the term 40 weeks, and he based his calculations on the lunar calendar, and we still use it today. Now, it's normal for some women to take 44 weeks to cook their babies, but you're not allowed. You have to be induced. They say that your placenta is going to stop working, so the only organ in your body will just stop working, apparently, and no others will stop working. That doesn't make any sense. Then they say you'll have a stillbirth. Now, this is the coercive language I don't like, and it's not acceptable. I'm not here to be the extreme opposite or anything. I'm just here to go, well, here's the actual statistics. What do you want to do? If women took their power and made an informed decision, that's where peace on earth begins, from empowerment, right? But they're just told, you've got to do this, your body's going to fail you. They're not given any information. So let's take the overdue thing, that you're going to have a stillbirth. I would always say to women, if you are told that, ask them. So if they say you're going to have a stillbirth, your chances are doubled. Double of what? Is it 1 in 500 to 2 in 500, or 1 in 5 to 2 in 5? Because I know which one I'd put bets on a horse with. So if they don't have this information to make an informed decision, of course they're going to go, yeah, sure, I'll go in and get induced. And why would a doctor say anything wrong to me? Why would they do that? Because it's their guidelines. And a lot of midwives go into this with beautiful intent. They want to help women. They want to help empower them. But they're so disillusioned by a pathologized systemic practice that they've got to tick the boxes. The guidelines say this, so I've got to say that to my patients. That they're just working in a machine. And it's not the people inside the machine. It's the machine itself that's the beast. So the system works perfectly well for the system, just not the women birthing inside it. So this is why I wanted to give women an actual choice. They don't have to go through the system if they don't want to. They can. I've just written a book about social services involvement, because the amount of women that contact me on a regular basis saying that social services have been called because they wanted a free birth. So those of you who don't know what that is, that's an unassisted birth. So no midwife, no doctor. They've been called, social services have been called because of that. It's totally legal to have a free birth. You don't need permission to perform a physiological process, but the ignorant people inside the system are reporting them. And who wants to handle social services when you've got a newborn baby? So I've written a guidebook how to deal with that and how to navigate the system, which is very complicated. It is so... I'm actually in disgust with the amount of people that have come to me. Like, for example, I've had women saying, I'm pregnant. If I say no to a PCR test, they're going to take my baby away from me for 5 days because they're going to treat the baby as COVID positive and myself as COVID positive. That's kidnap. Like, it's insane how this is working and how people are just going, okay, like, that's not normal. So many babies are ending up with lumbar punctures now. Part of me is thinking, why do you think this baby is ill? Like, is the baby ill, or are you just trying to keep this woman in hospital for as long as possible? It's very sinister. And the more I see, the more I think this world's gone mad. But I'm trying everything I can to help women in birth. I'm rambling
the world's
now.
gone mad, absolutely, for sure. And what you said about that is medical kidnap. It truly is. And it's so interesting to me how, in obstetrics, that they do everything that they used to, pre-COVID, used to do everything they could to make sure that this baby is delivered safely, and, and we get, take care of the mother. And all these years, mothers weren't even supposed to take so much as an aspirin, but now we're giving them injections, we're giving them shots, we're giving them pertussis shots and flu shots, and now COVID shots while they're pregnant, which is insane. And then, it used to be, I remember when I graduated from medical school, even Rogam, for women who are Rh negative, they would give Rogam at the point of delivery. You would deliver the baby and you'd get the Rogam shot. And now they start giving it at 7 months and sometimes a second dose at 9 months, because they've defined this thing called a leak, that your uterus, the placenta might fail you, just like what you were saying, this incredible thing might suddenly break down and fail you. And there might be some commingling of the baby's blood with the mother's blood that sets up a hematological problem. So we better get ahead of that curve and we better start giving Rogam at 7 months and then a second dose at 9 months. And it was up until 2001 that Rogam had mercury in it. And so we were doing that, and I don't know what it is in the UK, but these whole
It's called
processes now,
anti-D.
yes, yes, this whole
Yeah.
thing is this whole process that is so abnormal. And then as soon as the baby's born, we pop them with a hepatitis B shot. We put antibiotic goop in their eye, so that they can't see to like bond with the mother. And oh, your milk isn't coming in yet, so we're going to feed it this crappy formula. It's just, I said, maybe you can help me with this, Nickita. I had this whole outline that I wanted to write this book called What We Do to Newborns, How Do Babies Survive? And it starts with, in vitro things. They want to do in vitro testing. They want to, give all these shots. It's just the medicalization of birth is just an atrocity.
I know. It's like giving everyone chemo just in case you get cancer. It's insane to me.
That's a
Like
great
with the
analogy.
anti-D, people,
That's a great analogy.
people, well, that's about right, really, isn't it? Like it doesn't make any sense unless you're ill. I mean, are they hearing hooves and automatically thinking it's a zebra and not a horse? It's usually a horse. They need to stop being so dramatic about this whole thing. But like they'll tell you when you're pregnant, don't smoke, don't drink, don't take drugs, don't eat liver. Like, I mean, this is crazy. Yeah, you'll get a vitamin A overdose. And I'm sitting here going, well, unless you're eating liver from a polar bear, I think you'll be fine. And also liver has got some amazing qualities to it. So you've got every vitamin and mineral you need in liver. It's wonderful for pregnancy, but they will tell you don't eat liver. So they'll say, don't do this, don't do that. But then as soon as you're in labor, we're going to blast you full of opiates. That's fine. And then they wonder why they've got a dopey baby. So this is a very typical scenario, okay? And this is what people really need to know before they agree to these inductions. So a normal process with a woman in 2022 in the UK and the US, oh, you're overdue. You've got to be induced. And they'll say yes 9 times out of 10, unless they're really informed. So they'll start off with a couple of different types of induction methods, like a stretch and sweep, which is putting the fingers inside the vagina and sweeping around the membrane to try and get things to go. Now, people will say that's benign, but it's not benign. It can cause days and days of prodromal labour, and it can be very painful. The next step, they'll try something called Propes or Prostin. It's like a gel which will soften the cervix. Now, 9 times out of 10, it will end up with syntocin, and in the States, you call it Pitocin. So it's a synthetic form of oxytocin, and it's given in a drip. And what it does, it makes your contractions longer, stronger, closer together, and very, very painful. It stops your natural oxytocin from working, so you don't have that beautiful, blissful birth bubble, as I call it, because I see women have orgasms in labour, the ones I see, because, yeah, you don't see all the screaming and the shouting and, oh, God. You don't see it like that. When women are allowed to get on with it and do it in their own time, it's very beautiful. I had a wonderful birth for my last baby. I want to do it again. But anyway, so they'll blast them full of this Pitocin, and it's so painful, they ask for an epidural. The epidural renders them on their back. Gravity's not helping the baby come down. Now, because they're not feeling the extra pain of this Pitocin because of the epidural, they're just going to up the Synto because the baby's not coming out as quickly as they would like. So they up the Synto, up it. Now, in the meantime, because your uterus is going like this constantly, the baby's placenta is being starved of oxygen. And then there are D cells. And all of a sudden, they're like, oh, this baby's got to come out. It's a cesarean operation or a ventouse or a forceps delivery. And they want you to thank them for saving a baby from a process that they started in the first place. 99% of the time, totally unnecessary. And this is so common, but not normal, okay? It's common. It happens all the time. I had to stop working in hospitals about 7 years ago because it happened to my friend. I could see what was about to happen. I said, if you agree to this induction, this is what's going to happen. But they coerced her. They made her feel terrified to say no. And I just walked out of there and I started crying. I said, I am never going into hospital again. And I haven't. but this is it, right? Everyone's like, well, what if something goes wrong? Yeah, there are risks with every single birth scenario. There are risks at home, there's risks at hospital, more, I would argue, risks at hospital. And then afterwards, when the baby's born, from this cascade of intervention, they wonder why the baby's not latching on. They put a hat on babies. Oh my God, I don't know why they do that. They put a hat straight on a baby's head. This is ridiculous. So let me just explain briefly the physiology of the third stage of labour. So when the placenta is born. So as soon as the baby's born, it should go straight to mum's tummy. The baby will do something remarkable if you just leave them alone to do it. They will start to crawl up the tummy. It's called the birth crawl. And they will do the rooting reflex. So like go like that to try and find the boob. The tummy, the feet on the tummy will start to push down the uterus to start contractions again for the placenta to come away. Then the rooting reflex, when they latch on, that will start your oxytocin and start the contractions to get the placenta out again. If this is interrupted, you'll have problems. You'll have a PPH, postpartum hemorrhage. You need to smell your baby for that oxytocin to start flowing. But no, they will stick a hat straight on that baby, start insisting on weighing it. I don't know where this obsession's come from. Who cares what a baby weighs? Just at least give it a few hours. Why do we need to know what this baby weighs? They start passing the baby around from person to person like a joint. It's just ridiculous. Take the baby, take the baby, take the baby. We've got to prod this. And they wonder why women have a postpartum hemorrhage. They've stuck the lights on. They've got doctors talking to them. They've got their legs wide open. They've got strangers walking in. Of course they're going to bleed. But this has become normal. Imagine this, right? In the last century, we have convinced women that it's acceptable to walk into a hospital and for a stranger to say, I'm going to put my fingers inside you now. And they go, yeah, sure. Or you can't come in. If you're not 4 centimetres, you're not coming in. It's like the world's worst security at a nightclub. You've got to come in if you let us give you a vaginal exam. What's going on there? That's become normal. Now, here's the secret, ladies. Your cervix isn't a crystal ball. All it tells the practitioner is how dilated you are in that moment in time. It doesn't tell them where you're going to be in 10 minutes or an hour or 5 hours or where you were 10 minutes ago. Here's another secret. Sometimes a cervical exam can be so tremendously stressful, especially for survivors of abuse, that your cervix can start to close back up. And they don't tell you that. And then all of a sudden you're back at 3 centimetres, then 5, then back to 3, because you're so scared, your body is tensing up. But it doesn't tell you where you're going to be. All you're going to do is introduce infection, scare the woman if she's not comfortable. For what? So the practitioner can know how dilated you are. Why don't practitioners know how dilated you are by the sounds you're making? I had an actual obstetrician say the following words to me. I couldn't believe it. And she was a woman. When I was pregnant with my last baby, she rang me up and she said, Nickita, I see here that you're declining vaginal exams. I said, yes, that's right, doctor. Why? I don't want them. They're useless. And she said, if you decline vaginal exams, how are we going to know when you're in second stage labour? I put the phone down. I thought, if you don't know what a woman looks like in second stage labour, something's very wrong. You don't know the sounds they're making, but maybe they don't. They're so used to women with epidurals, they're not used to seeing physiological birth. So yeah, it's crazy.
You know, I hope that you go through, I want you to talk a little bit about the book you wrote. And I hope that you go through and explain all of this in your book. And if you haven't, I hope you write one that goes through and explains all of this.
I've written a second book. So the one I've just written is just about social services and how to handle and navigate the system. But I have written a second book, but it's not finished yet. And I am explaining all of this, yeah. And I'm hoping to make a film as well about all of this. But I train people to do what I do. So I run regular online Zoom courses. I've taught doctors, midwives, doulas in the States. We've got 2 people from California signed up for our October course. And because it's recorded, it goes to the course area. You don't have to get up at 4 a.m. to come and join or anything. It's anyone can do it, but I teach, I suppose, old school natural birth attendant skills. You know, instead of like sutures for perineal tears, I teach to use dulce seaweed that will repair a tear in like 48 hours. It will make a woman's perineum heal. We do all sorts of things. So like for bleeding, postpartum bleeding, I just cut off a bit of the placenta and put it in the woman's cheek. That stops bleeding. There's loads of things. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you've got all of these
Miraculous
written
how a
down
body.
somewhere, right? This is just amazing.
Yeah,
It's
of course.
amazing information.
Yeah. I've this is what I teach. So if anyone's interested, come and learn.
Well, talk
And
a
you don't
little bit
have to
about
want to
talk a little
be.
about that, Nickita, because one of the things I was going to ask you, because you said in your bio that you've trained 65 doulas, midwives, and doctors in 6 countries with over 100 practitioners. I was going to ask you, how many have you trained in the US or Canada?
I think about 10 so far in the US,
In the
but
US and
I
Canada?
really want to branch out to the US more. Canada 1, I think.
Oh my goodness, 1.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
But
now
yeah,
here's the time.
we need to get it out
Here's the
there.
opportunity for you right now. Pitch your course to the Americans and the Canadians that are listening to this. And we've got big listeners, big followers in Australia also. You know, if this is an online
Yeah. Oh,
course,
yeah.
how do they find you and sign up for this course? This sounds amazing.
Okay. So if you go to whenpushcomestosshove.co.uk, you'll see a sign saying train with us. You can just go and press enroll for the October course. I think we've only got a few spots left, so get to it quickly. So what we do on the course, it's a 4-day intensive course, but your training doesn't stop after 4 days. I'll explain in a moment. So 4 days intensive Zoom course. On there, you'll meet your fellow students and you're going to join your tribe, your people. You know, that everyone's like-minded. It's beautiful. Now, you don't even have to go into birth to do this course. This is beneficial for anyone because it's centered around self-development, spiritual development, motivational. It's just wonderful. I can't really describe it. You have to go on the course to get it. We also talk about relationships with money, because if you've gone from having a paycheck every month and then you're self-employed as a birth keeper or birth practitioner, it can be scary, right? So we talk about the root cause of worry when it comes to money. I use the Money is Love model by Barbara Wilder. And we teach all that, all while learning the best thing in the world about how to attend a birth and facilitate a physiological birth. So you will learn all sorts of things. We teach things that no other course does. So we focus on free birth, which is unassisted birth. Now, what you need to remember is you are not responsible for a woman's choices. They are responsible. And if they don't want to be responsible, they shouldn't be hiring you. They should go to the normal hospital and go through that, which they have every right to do. If you want to hand over your birth, hand it over. But if you don't want to, come to us. So we are there to be strong advocates, a wise presence in the room. Just seeing love and trust in someone else's eyes is enough to make you go, I can do this. And you've got no fear around you. And the chances are you'll have a beautiful birth. We can't promise you a beautiful birth, but we can promise you we can give you every tool to help that happen. So we train you in physiological birth. We talk about free birth. We talk about vaccines. We talk about anti-D. So if you're rhesus negative, straight after birth, the 3rd stage, we talk about breastfeeding. Breastfeeding is so, so, so important. In the UK, only 1% of women are breastfeeding at 6 months, which is terrible. And it's just down to lack of support. But what people don't know, like breast milk, I'll give you a fun fact. Did you know breast milk will change in temperature and chemistry depending on what bacteria is in your baby's mouth? Your nipple will register, that baby's got a temperature. So it will change in temperature to accommodate what's going on with that baby at that given point. I expressed a load of milk when I had an infection, because that milk will help that baby if she gets that again. It's like almost like a natural vaccine, I suppose. It's fantastic. It's liquid gold. So we teach you about breastfeeding, how to support a mum. We're not teaching you to do anything clinical. That's not our remit. We know when our line ends, you know. So we teach you physiological birth, how to support women. We teach you rights, human rights, because this is where a lot of people fall down. They don't know how to help women because they're being bullied, and the hospital are like, we have to do this, you have to do that. We're here to go, actually, remember this, read the NHS constitution, your human rights here, and then we help there. So I write letters for people all the time. I think hospitals in the UK are getting sick of when push comes to shove. They're like, oh no, her again. And I'm going, please see me. You can't do that. So we teach you so much, but the most critical thing here is self-development. How can you hold space for a woman? How can you make her feel safe and loved and wise if you're not the best you can be? You've got to be at the top of your game. You've got to feel that you are growing. We talk about the human needs and have a spiritual connection with God, and how you're going to serve, how you're going to serve the world. It's all about love, because the only thing that exists is love, and the rest is just an egoic construct that you've got to transcend. So we really, really focus on that. So after the 4-day course, you get assigned a mentor. It's either myself, a lovely woman called Rachel. She also teaches 3-step rewind. So that's women who have had previous birth trauma. She can help you uncover that trauma. So you get a mentor. So say you're booked to go to a birth. We'll do a debrief with you beforehand, and then a birth reflections afterwards. Every month we meet up on Zoom with the wider network of When Push Comes to Shove. So everyone I've trained, they'll come in. So last time we were talking about breech birth. I'm thinking we've got another one this Friday. Maybe we'll talk about twin vaginal birth. And it's a constant learning process. Now, you're responsible to carry on your education. If you see other courses, do them. Because you've got to stay ahead of the game. You've got to know what's going on. It's really important to take responsibility for your education as well. We'll give you as much as we can. But, you know, some people teach me things sometimes. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. Let's look into that. Or they ask questions I don't know the answer to. Then I go down another path, find out some more interesting things, speak to other people, other midwives around the world. It's fascinating. We learn so much. But the most important thing, it's a family. I never predicted in a million years that I could have such a large group of women without any bitchiness, but here we are. Everyone is just on the same page. They're aligned. If they don't agree, there's an open dialogue, and we're allowed to do that. There's no one cancelling each other, shutting each other down. It's just a beautiful open dialogue, a nice, friendly family environment. And again, you don't have to go into the birth world to find this course beneficial. So many people just come away thinking, oh, I'm going to do this now, because on day 4 we teach marketing and how to sell what's in your head. There's a lot to it.
I think what you just said is just amazing. I would love to think that family doctors all over the world, you know, would get involved with this, or nurse practitioners, or people that see pregnant women and would be able to put everything that you described, all those principles into action. You know, I think that's just, you've put together just an amazing core curriculum. In fact, if I had just a little bit more time in my life, I'd love to take this course. And I'm not delivering babies, and I don't have any plans of being a midwife or to actually even being a birth keeper. But I just think that the information really sounds amazing, just absolutely amazing. Now, do you have a social media presence, or someplace where people can actually follow you other than taking your course?
I do. Yeah, I do. So my largest following is on Telegram, and it's called Awakened Pregnancy and Birth. And then you can find me there on Telegram. We've also got an Instagram. I think that's when.push comes to shove. We're on Facebook. Just look when push comes. In fact, here's an easy thing to do. Go to my website, whenpushcomestosshove.co.uk. On the right side of the page, you can see all my social media buttons, and you can just click and follow which your preference is. But Telegram is where I'm most busy. And we've got a lovely group on Telegram. So all like-minded parents, just getting support from each other. They haven't got the doubt, you know, people going, that's dangerous. You're really irresponsible. They're just people, like-minded people going, no, you can do it, girl. You know, it's wonderful. I can't recommend it enough.
So I'm curious, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more in the deep dive discussion we're going to do pretty soon here, because we're winding up on this discussion. But how did you come up with the name of your organization?
Things come to me in the bath, which is really strange. My song came to me in the bath as well, Breathe Again. I just heard the melody in my head, but I was in the bath one day and I thought, when push comes to shove, and I kind of went, oh, that's a good name. So I went out and bought the domain. I was like, tee-hee, had that sort of moment. I thought, oh no, this could go somewhere. So yeah, that's where it came from.
Well, as we're closing down on our This Week with Dr. T here in this discussion this morning, this has been so informative and so enlightening. I mean, seriously, I'm absolutely fascinated by everything that you talked about. We're going to have to do a lot of marketing to get this going for you. I hope that you're going to have more courses because this is information that everybody needs to have, whether they're pregnant or their grandmothers or, their next door neighbors having a baby and that they could share that information with them, but just the whole idea of the things that you brought together. And I think it's really, really interesting what you kind of collected here. I do have one other question that just came to me. You said that you've spoken like with midwives and all over the world. Is midwifery and birthing different in different parts of the world? Like if you've talked to someone in India or Australia or Russia or South America, is it, are they, are the good quality birth keepers the same, or does it vary from different places in the world?
There is different in training. So in the US, my understanding is you can have lay midwives, so they haven't had formal medical training. So it's more like a doula role. But I'll tell you, the best midwives I've ever met, in fact, the best midwife that you will ever find is a farmer. They know birth and they know them well. If they're used to seeing cattle being born, they understand it. They know exactly how often birth goes wrong and why. But some amazing midwives that I've come into contact with are South American parteras. So some of them are illiterate, but they know birth and they know it well because they're not relying on technology and scans. They go on intuition and they know birth so well. I've learned so much from people like this. I work with an amazing midwife who serves the Amish community. She's taught me so much. My grandmother taught me a lot. She's from India. She died sadly last year. The jab killed her, unfortunately. But she taught me a lot about traditional midwives in India, the baby catchers. She said they catch the babies. There's an African midwife I work with. She's from Kenya. I get to speak to her quite a lot. Again, they've moved away from the whole pathologized birth. They just talk about physiological birth. In Western countries, I mean, if you look at the States, you guys over there have got, I think, one of the highest mortality rates for infant and maternal mortality rates in the built-up world because of over medicalization of birth. In the UK, do you know what the main reason for maternal death is after birth? Suicide.
Wow.
Number one reason of maternal death after birth in the UK is suicide.
Oh my goodness.
No support, postnatal depression, because it's been the trauma from birth. If you screw up a birth, it can really go wrong. And I'm not just talking about the first few months. This is years afterwards. One of my best friends had the most traumatic birth. This is the birth I told you about from the last hospital birth I attended. And it ended up with a cascade of intervention. And she won't mind me sharing her story. But last year, she jumped off her third floor balcony, all from postnatal trauma. Because afterwards, she felt she didn't matter anymore. And it was just a baby. She had no support. She was failed over and over and over again by a system that is just built for the system, not to actually help. And this is so common, and it's blamed on so many things as scapegoats. But it's birth. Look how women were before and afterwards. So many women enter the system healthy and happy, and they leave downtrodden and traumatized and scarred, both physically and emotionally. Do you know the amount of women that end up with a rectocele because they have been put on their back to give birth? Did you know that your pelvis decreases by 30% if you lay down? How can you push uphill? How can you push out a baby if your pelvis is being squashed against a bed? And they end up with a rectocele, so a prolapsed back passage. And there's so many people in care homes who can no longer go to the toilet without assistance and too embarrassed to say something. So they end up with infections, and it's all caused at birth. Adverts on the TV making out incontinence to be normal. Oh, women just incontinent, they've had babies. It's not normal. It's common because of what they do to us. It's abusive. On your back, easier for us. We need to listen into the baby. I need to put my hand inside you. That's abusive. What do you want to do, woman? What do you want to do, mamas? Do you want to squat when you give birth? Because that is probably the best way to do it. You don't want to lie on your back. You wouldn't go to the toilet lying down, would you? So why would you give birth like that?
That's a really, really good analogy. That's a really good analogy. Absolutely. Oh, Nickita, this has just been so enlightening and seriously so informative. It's been an absolute joy to talk with you here this morning. As we're closing out for the last few minutes here at This Week with Dr. T, is there any specific thing that you would like to leave our audience with this morning?
Please go and look at my song. If you like it, share it, because it's getting the word out there about informed consent in birth. So, another thing that's really important to mention, we know that not everyone can afford the care we offer. So I have come up with something called the When Push Comes to Shove Access Fund, which means if you are on a low income and you need an independent birth practitioner, we can provide you that for free, because it's so important. No one should be denied care just because they can't afford it. So I've got an access fund and we rely heavily on donations. So if you would be so generous, if you go to whenpushcomestosshove.co.uk, click on the GoFundMe icon, and if you could be generous to donate something. The other way we keep the money going is everything I earn from free music goes straight to GoFundMe, to our access fund. And if you do train with us and we get you work, we don't take any membership fees. We just ask for a 10% donation to our access fund, so we can continue to serve low-income families for free. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to access this sort of information, and it's not fair. So no matter where you are in the world, if you're on a low income, we can help you. So my final thoughts, I suppose, go to YouTube, look up Nickita, Breathe Again, watch the video. It's so beautiful. It's full of loads of home births, midwives singing along to the chorus. Just share it and it will just spread awareness of the movement. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nickita. Oh my goodness. I've just got goosebumps listening to you talk. It's people like you that are really going to revolutionize the world, because we really need to develop. Not, we can't take this system head on. It's too big, too powerful, too much money, too controlled, too regulated, and too indoctrinated. But to create a parallel system, it's like, okay, let that sit over there and do its thing. Like you said, it's a system. But let's go over here and develop something that's beautiful and loving and kind and supportive for all income levels and all educational levels. Let's do this over here. And it's like, the movie, If You Build It, They Will Come. So as you build it, people will come, practitioners and pregnant women and all of these other things. So that is absolutely stunning. I mean, I'm serious. I'm so honored to have this time to talk to you and to share your information with the world, through our audience, and
Thank
where
you.
it's going to go from here. I'm really appreciative of that. So as I close out, I'm both grateful and honored to learn so much about what you do. And we're going to do what we can to help to promote this and to get all people to understand that birth really is a gift from God, and it should be a natural thing that you do between you, your baby, your spouse, your supportive people, your birth keeper, which I love that term, your birth keeper, and to bring an incredible new human onto the planet. So, with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us here this morning at This Week with Dr. T. We get together every Monday morning at 9 a.m. And don't forget to follow with some of our sponsors, mypillow.com. If you go to mypillow.com/Dr. T, DRT, they have a buy one, get one on their sets of towels this week. Actually, in our store, we actually are promoting NAC because it helps to improve your glutathione level. Your glutathione is your number one top antioxidant, and that's something that you really need to have in your medicine cabinet. And then my favorite thing, and actually the show this morning, because I just saw it today, I'm going to go out and buy my own cup. I'm going to go out and buy my own cup that says Jesus is coming mugs that are available from the Tenpenny store. So with that, no matter what, how I close every one of my broadcasts every single time, whether it's pre-recorded or live like this one was, that you can follow it here on Cloud Hub. I always close with one of my absolute favorite verses from the Bible, which is Romans 12:12. Rejoice in hope, be patient in trouble, and be persistent in prayer. And it sort of covers all the bases. So thank you so much, Nickita. Thank you for being here. We'll stay on the line here for just a couple of minutes because we have a second interview that we do with our guests. It's called The Deep Dive with Dr. T, that is special and only for our premium podcast members. So all of you have a great rest of your week. Tomorrow night, Tuesday night, and Thursday night, we do Happy Hour with Dr. T. Again, it's a live broadcast on our Happy Hour with Dr. T Cloudbeam's channel. Oh, let me say that again. Happy Hour with Dr. T on Tuesday and Thursday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Time on our Cloud Hub channel, which is Happy Hour with Dr. T. You're going to really enjoy our guests this week. So all of you guys have a great week, a blessed week. And thank you again, Nickita, so much for joining us. Everybody have a great day. Till we see you again next week.